So, what is the 4% rule? Well, the 4% rule was born in the 1990s, and it was based on a study by a financial planner named William Benyon. He looked at a 30-year retirement period using US stocks and bond market history and asked, how much can someone safely withdraw from their portfolio without running out of money? And what he found was that 4% was the starting balance. Now, that's adjusted each year for inflation. So, if I retire with $1 million, you could safely withdraw $40,000 in your first year. Then it increases slowly over time with inflation. So, in year one, $40,000. Year two jumps up to $40,800. That's a 2% inflation rate. Year three, $41,616, and so on. So, in theory, you'd still have money 30 years later. But there are some big assumptions baked into this that don't reflect how most Canadians actually live or retire. So let's talk about why this rule breaks down north of the border. Reason number one, taxes are different in Canada. The 4% rule assumes that your withdrawals are tax-free or they're tax light. But in Canada, that $40,000 might come from RIFs, it might come from LIFs, which are fully taxable, non-registered accounts, which are part capital gains, part interest, and then you have your TFSAs, which are tax-free. So depending on your mix, your net after-tax income might be very different. And if you're also clawing back maybe some of that OAS in the process, well, that's going to be another penalty for you. Reason number two, we have government benefits to coordinate here. So in Canada, most retirees receive CPP, OAS, sometimes GIS, maybe a workplace pension. So this means that your personal portfolio doesn't need to fund everything, but it also means that your income has to be carefully layered. Now, blindly just applying the 4% rule could cause you to withdraw too much, pay too much tax, and reduce your long-term flexibility. Now, reason number three, real retirees don't spend in a straight line. Now, the 4% rule assumes smooth spending every year for 30 years. But in reality, most retirees go through phases, such as your go-go years. This is your 60s to early 70s. These are your higher travel, new hobbies. Maybe you've got some home upgrades to take care of. And then you're going to enter into your slow-go years, which is generally your mid-70s to early mid-80s. And that's about less traveling and maybe a little bit more of a steady routine. And then you have your no-go years. This is going into your late 80s. And really what we're concerned about here are healthcare costs. Lifestyle starts to slow down a bit. So applying a flat 4% rate across all three phases just doesn't fit here. No, you may want to spend more early or maybe less later on. And the rule doesn't really account for that. Now, the bigger problem here, it feeds fear. Now, here's the part that really drives me crazy. The 4% rule, while created to provide confidence, often does the opposite. Now, I meet so many Canadians who have saved diligently, they have solid pensions or benefits, they have more than enough invested, but they still feel like they don't feel comfortable spending because they're afraid of breaking this rule. Now, what if I spend 5% a year? What if the markets dip? Am I screwed in this situation? Will I outlive my money? This kind of rigid thinking leads to underspending, anxiety, and missed experiences. And that's not what retirement should look like. So what's the best approach here? Well, here's what I recommend to a lot of my clients. Step one, start with your lifestyle, not your portfolio. Ask, what kind of life do I actually want to live? What do I need to feel safe and secure? And what brings joy, energy, and meaning? Then reverse engineer your income around that. Step two, layer your income sources thoughtfully. Now, instead of relying on a single 4% draw, stack your income intentionally. Think about CPP. This is going to be indexed for life. OAS, watch out for those clawbacks. Pension income, if that's applicable to you. TFSA withdrawals, again, tax-free. RIF and LIF, those are going to be taxable, but you could split them possibly with a spouse. non-registered accounts. We're talking about capital gains, interest, and dividends in these types of accounts. This is going to give you flexibility and tax efficiency, and it's going to happen year over year. Next, step 3, and that's using a guardrail strategy, not a rigid rule. Now, rather than sticking to a 4% no matter what, use guardrails. Now, let your spending adjust based on market performance, life events, health status, big ticket plans like travel, renovations, or maybe downsizing. So let's provide a little bit of an example here. Spend a bit more after a good year in the markets. Pull back slightly after a drop. Use cash reserves to be able to smooth things out. This is going to make retirement more sustainable and emotionally doable. Step 4, plan for your go-go years. If you're in your 60s or your early 70s, these are the years to live fully. Don't be afraid to just front load some of your spending while you're in your healthiest years. You can always adjust later, but joy and energy are not renewable resources. So spend intentionally, not fearfully. Let's provide a real life example here. I'm going to call these clients Mike and Linda. So Mike and Linda came to me in their early 60s. They had about $900,000 in savings. They had CPP and OAS projected to be around $36,000 per year combined. They didn't have a pension, but they had a fully paid off home. They didn't have any big travel plans, but they wanted to help their kids renovate their kitchen, and they were withdrawing 3% of their portfolio, and they were terrified of going over. Now, after running their numbers, modeling a 30+ year scenario, and factoring in taxes, I told them you can spend more and you should. They started drawing closer to 5.2% for the first 10 years, using TFSAs, non-registered income to stay tax efficient. And guess what? The plan still worked. They lived better. They felt calmer. And that's the power of a personalized plan. No rules written back in the 1990s here. Now, you're probably thinking, what about market volatility? And I get it, right? Markets go up, they go down, and you don't want to run out of money here. Now, here's what I say to a lot of my clients in order to stay calm. We need 1 to 3 years of income need to be able to stay safe and liquid. Okay. We don't sell equities after a downturn. We draw down cash buffers or cash wedges. We use TFSAs and capital gains harvesting to be able to manage taxes in those down years. And then we review the plan annually and we adjust as needed. Now, the truth is, flexibility is really our greatest asset here in retirement. It's not just in your portfolio, though, but in your mindset. Now, the math still matters, but the meaning does too. So let's be clear. Yes, we still use math. Yes, we still run projections. Yes, we still plan conservatively. But also we ask, what's the point of all this saving? What memories do you want to make? What legacy do you want to leave? And what kind of life do you want to look back on? If the 4% rule is stopping you from living, then it's not a rule worth keeping. So what to do instead of this 4% rule? Well, remember to focus on lifestyle goals, not a flat number. We want to layer your income to stay tax efficient. You're going to use guardrails, not rigid rules. You're going to plan for those go-go years intentionally. You're going to keep 1 to 3 years of income in cash to be able to reduce that risk. You're going to revisit your plan annually. And remember, flexibility is more important than formulas. Now, if you want help building a real retirement plan, one that's personal, flexible, and it's grounded in your life as a Canadian, that's exactly what I do. So you can learn more at stonecitywealth.com. I'm Adam. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.